It feels very strange as a podcast coach who podcasts to say that this is going to be the final episode of Podcast Growth University, but it is. And will it be forever? I don't know, but I am excited to talk about why, because I think it goes hand in hand with all of the things that we've been talking about over the last almost 200 episodes of this show. Podcast Growth Nation, today for episode number 198, the End of PGU. So I try to practice what I teach, right? Because most of what I teach is based on what I've practiced for long enough that I saw a very good result. So it made sense to teach other people to do it, right? So I try to practice what I teach always. And if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know I'm always talking about making final decisions and going back to what we talked about last week. Procrastinating, eliminating, automating, delegating, all that stuff. Doubling down, all that stuff. And sometimes that requires you, now not always, and I'm not saying this is going to be the case for you, but sometimes that requires you to do uncomfortable things and take time from something that you enjoy doing and put it into something that you either enjoy doing more or is more needed or whatever it may be. So Alan and I were talking yesterday. And we've grown a bunch in the business and we've grown a bunch as people, and we just understand things at a higher level than we ever have in the past. And the whole point of Podcast Growth University was eventually to have its own type of business model, right? Podcast Growth University is going to be the free stuff, and then I'm always going to do free stuff, obviously. Then we're going to have Podcast Growth Nation. We're going to have a Facebook group where we post in it every day, and then we're going to have group coaching that's just from Podcast Growth, and we'll have different stuff, right? We have the packages and all that stuff. And I think as we've done this for, I'm coming up on 52 weeks? I'm coming up on 4 years of doing this, I think, this show, which is crazy to me. That doesn't even make sense. But 52 times 4 is 208. So yeah, I'm 10 episodes away from 4 years. I love this. I thoroughly enjoy doing this. And we are just having really good success in the business with things that we should just double down on. And that's the hard part about this. And maybe you'll look at me differently and say, well, you're giving up on the podcast thing. I don't know. I don't know what you'll think. And no, I'm not giving up on the podcast thing. We're still going to do 7 episodes a week with NLU. But it's just this doesn't make the level of sense that it once did. I think that's probably like the most candid explanation I can give. And the time is better spent just growing Next Level University. So that's the other interesting thing too. And this is a conversation for everybody. This is like a lesson I've learned and that I hopefully can pass on to other people. I think we used to live in a time where you had to do the specific thing that you wanted to help other people do. So I guess by definition I have, right? I've grown and scaled a podcast to a coming up on multi-million-dollar business and million listens and all that happy jazz. Then you start a podcast about podcasts because it makes sense. It's like, well, I want to be the podcast guy. I want to help people with podcasts, so I'm going to start a podcast about podcasts. When in reality, I don't know if that's really the way the economy of creators is going, because there's people out there that like just have done hundreds of live events that could definitely coach people on how to do hundreds of live events because they eventually got to the point where they did it successfully. So it doesn't mean you should have a podcast about live events necessarily, right? So that's something we're kind of learning is we thought NLU was going to be like success. We were going to teach people how to be successful in fitness, finance, and family. Then Podcast Growth U was going to have its own complete turn off, run off of business where it was just podcast stuff. And then Alan was going to have the same thing, but for Business Growth University. And that was going to be just business owners. And it just makes sense to do one thing really well because we can help more people if we just do that one thing really well. And I can still connect with podcasters and I can still add value and I can still do breakthrough sessions. I can do all that. Alan's doing the same thing with business. So it just gets to a point where it's like, if you check in constantly with why you're doing something and it gets to the point where you realize, okay, the reason I started it is not the reason I'm doing it anymore, or the reason I started it, things have pivoted and I haven't pivoted. It goes back to a lot of the fundamentals we've talked about. And this is why I tell people all the time, I'm not saying I'm the only one, but I am a podcast coach who does not think everybody in every business should have a podcast. some people it's just not going to serve them at the level that they think. And their time might be spent better elsewhere, right? And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here. Not that I don't love this. I do love this. I honestly, there's a part of me that doesn't want to stop. There's a big part of me that doesn't want to stop. I'm usually somebody who's very quick to make decisions. Like we had the conversation and we were talking about one department and he said, what do you think? And I said, can it, done, gone. And then when we got to this, I was like, I don't know, man. It's weird. It's weird imagining this not happening anymore. But I do think it is the right choice. As much as it sucks and as much as, I don't know, maybe you'll look at me differently. I don't know. I hope not. But, that is the hard part of this. Is we are trying to and always getting more clear on like what is moving the needle, what is moving the needle, what is moving the needle, right? We've talked about the Pareto principle, the 20% of effort that gives 80% of results, right? We have a lot of places right now where we're putting in, we know where the 20% is that gives us the 80% of results. And it's not just like financial results. I'm not saying that. It's just results in general. Aligned results maybe is better. That's a better thought process. So I think the lesson for everybody is you just have to continue forever rechecking why you're doing what you're doing. Is it still serving the purpose? If so, awesome. If not, why not? How do we realign? Is it worth realigning? Are your time, energy, effort, and focus better off somewhere else? That's the question. And that's why, I don't know. Will this come back at some point? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I never thought I was going to have a podcast about podcasts. I didn't know. So I'm not going to come on here. The last thing I'm going to do is come on here and say, well, I got really busy and I don't have time to do it. Nope. That is not the excuse. That is not the circumstance. Oh, I'm overwhelmed and I can't keep up. Nope. That is not the excuse. That is not the circumstance. I wouldn't lie. I don't want to lie about that. It just isn't the best priority right now. That's the truth. And I think that's a truth that we all have to get comfortable with ourselves first, with all stuff. With all stuff, whatever it is. If it's more important to you to sleep in than it is to go to the gym, that's a decision, right? Okay, that's a priority. You're choosing that. Same. For me, it's the opposite. I prioritize the gym more than I do sleep, and that's not a good thing. I'm not saying that as like a hustle porn thing. No, that's not a good thing. I need to make sure I'm getting a healthy amount of sleep. And I just think this is a conversation and a thought process for all of us. What is the best use of your time? You only have so much time. And another thought process too, this is an interesting thing. When one thing changes, everything changes. So when you understand something new at a deeper level, theoretically, you have to revisit everything because everything changes a little bit, right? Imagine you just found out that you're colorblind and for your entire life, everything you thought was red is blue. You have to every time you see something, you're going to have to run that through a new filter. Every time you see something. And you're going to look at all your clothes and you're going to look at all your partner's clothes and maybe the color of your car and the color of your house and the flowers and everything you have. Everything's going to look a little bit different. Every picture you've ever taken, you're going to see through a new lens now, right? I kind of think of that as a similar thing to this, where when you learn something, it affects everything. And the learning for us was there are things that we do really well that if we just continue doing really well, we can have the same but probably a higher level of impact by just doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on those things. And then the other conversation is, how long do you do something for before you figure out whether or not it's worth it? I don't know. For me, this isn't about, I don't really care. I don't care about the listens, really. I don't care about getting clients from this show. I really don't. I mean, I've done 200 episodes, and yeah, we've gotten a handful of clients, but it's not set up that way. I really don't care about that. So I would do 1,000 episodes without getting any level of success from this, quote unquote, just because I enjoy doing this. So it's not that. It's not like I didn't get certain results and certain timelines and certain metrics by a certain date. That's not it at all. When it comes to this show, it's for me, I just enjoy doing it. I very much enjoy doing it. And yes, very honestly, very transparently, the thought process was, well, eventually it would lead to some sort of its own business model, right? Because the goal is, it would pay for itself or whatever the goal for it is. But as things change, the strategy changes too. So One, I want everybody to think of the perspective of it's okay to pivot. Pivoting I think that is like one of the main keys to success. Being consistent is amazing. Being committed is amazing. Being consistent without decision making is not great. Being consistent without nuance is dangerous because you just do the same thing. It's great, all right? That's really good for success. But if you don't check in on why you're doing the thing, that's a whole nother conversation, right? That's a whole nother conversation. So yeah, this is going to be the last episode of PGU. Forever, I don't know. For a while, definitely. Will I revisit? Don't know. And like, I don't have anything written down. This is very much me just trying to authentically share with you out there what's going on in my mind and yeah, kind of working through it. And there's definitely like a little piece of me that's embarrassed. I don't know why. I don't know. Because I don't like to start things unless I'm going to do them for very, 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 very long. And again, 200 episodes is a long time, but not really to me, right? A different contrast, different perspective. So I think there's a little piece of me with that too. Is like, are you now going to think everything I said in the past was useless information? And if you do, you have every right to. You have every right to. I don't think that's the case. I think this is a really good thing, and I think it's me taking the advice that I would give somebody else, but I also understand if you don't feel that way. So, I don't know, how do I end this? How do you end a podcast? I've never done that before. I've never ended a podcast. This is what I would say. Based on this, continuously check in with yourself to figure out whether or not the actions you are taking towards your goals are still aligned. And then like really check in with your ego, really check in with what you want to do, all of those things. All of those things. I enjoy doing this. And I enjoy doing a lot of other things. And there are only so many priorities that you should have. But yeah, I could do an episode every week for sure, right? It takes me 20 minutes, half hour, whatever. But what could I do with that 20 minutes or half hour when it comes to answering client emails or whatever it is, right? That is the never-ending juggling act and the never-ending comparison that we all have. Opportunity cost is a real thing. That is a real thing. All right, I'm going to get out of here. What do I hope for you? I hope for you that me freestyling and just sharing my thoughts, like my raw thoughts, my new awarenesses, was some level of valuable, for sure. I hope that for sure. And I hope you find where you're going, whatever that means. Like, I'm not the guy that's going to say you have to have a podcast forever. Yeah, if you want to be a podcaster forever, you have to have a podcast forever. I am going to have NLU forever. That's never going to go anywhere. That's my baby, right? But everybody's different. So figure out, like, what are the goals? What about it is meaningful to you? I think those are important things to have. Because it's very easy just to fall into the day-to-day, okay, I do this every day, I do this every week, whatever it is, and you forget why you started it in the first place. So maybe that would be it. I hope you reconnect with your why. And I think this is a really good example of that. I can still, like, my goal is to help people, right? That's always been my goal. My goal is to be the type of person I needed when I was at my lowest point. That will always be my goal. I can still do that. I am still doing that, obviously, right? NLU, we do an episode every day. And I'm on shows to talk about podcasting, and I always have opportunities for people to reach out. So like, that's never going to leave. So if you listen to this and you don't listen to Next Level University and you want to continue on the journey, check out Next Level University. We do an episode every day. And like, seriously, if you have questions that you never asked, or if there's anything I didn't talk about that you wanted to hear, email me or message me on Instagram. Or if you have my WhatsApp, send me a WhatsApp message. I will answer all that stuff. I will answer all of that. That might even be more valuable because I can be very, very, very specific with you and what you're going through. So that's my final call to action. As always, and I have to change this part, as always, keep on crushing it. Keep on podcasting if it's aligned, and I will see you when I see you.